What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Drone 1K podcast. Today we have Michael Lilley on the podcast. I met Michael a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. We hosted a random dinner in Denver, and he came, and we got to be friends, learned about his business. He does really cool stuff in the construction space, a lot of progress update stuff. He actually created a short workshop for us, progression updates for drones. And if you want, you can get that for just $1. Normally, I think we sell it for like $75 or $100. You can get it for just $1 if you use the promo code Wet Dog, because that's the name of Michael's company. Wet Dog, WETDOG. With that said, Michael, great guy, great podcast, especially if you're interested in the construction world, progression update photos, how construction companies are using drones, and hearing about Michael's business. This guy works like a beast. He goes to bed super early, gets up earlier than anybody I know. So if you're looking for some motivation of that type, this is for you. I think that's all I've got for you. Enjoy this episode of the Drone to 1K podcast. Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Drone to 1K podcast. I'm David Young here today with Mr. Michael Lilley. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
No worries.
I want to give a brief introduction of yourself and let everyone know who you are.
Michael Lilley, I'm based out of more or less Denver, Colorado. I've got a small drone company called Wet Dog Drones. I've been doing this for coming up on 5 years commercially. I've been in the drone space for probably about 12. On DLC, I've got the oldest FAA registration for a drone. I've been in the space for a while, and I got into this side of it on the construction side when I was doing my orientation for the company I worked for. Is the safety guy pulled a drone, P4P out for learning his desk and shit, because we got to talking about drones. At the time I was in the FPV space, I had no clue that what laid ahead of me when I started going down that rabbit hole is drones in construction. But here we are 5 years later, and, I'm transitioning to a full-time job and leaving the full-time job for another full-time job, which is going to be really nice. It's supposed to happen in January, but somebody threw a bunch of money at me, so I had to stick around and see where that leads. But I am slowly transitioning out because I've got a hard date of June. My daughter's going off to college, and we're spending the summer chasing rodeos. So
Nice. That's cool.
So that's the plan for right now. But
Let's take it back. First off, give people just like a short synopsis of where you're at today with your business, like what you do, give people an idea of like how big your business is with whatever you're comfortable sharing. And then so that way they know where you're at. And then let's go back to the beginning and get the story.
we'll just go through it. A typical day with Wet Dog Drones right now, currently as a part-time job. My day starts at 1 a.m., 6 days a week. From 1 to 5, I'm generally sitting in front of the computer, either invoicing, I do some interior work, running that kind of thing. I do interior tours for construction companies. I do all my billing, all the work on the website, answer emails, all that admin stuff that nobody likes to talk about. I do that in the morning because my wife gets up and goes to work really early. So I get up with her, I get all that taken care of. And then from 5 to 5, I basically work for the man who happens to be my day job, who's also my biggest customer, which works out really well for me. And then from 5 to 7, I don't do anything because that's family time. And then, usually in bed 7:30, just to do it all over again. And I've been doing that for about a year and a half now, just to stay on top of things, because there's enough business to keep me busy. Looking at it, I have enough business. Like I said, I was supposed to go full-time in January of this year. A couple of things didn't happen that were supposed to.
When you say full-time, like full-time on the
Full-time,
drone
as
stuff?
in this is my drone job, and this is what I'm
Oh,
doing. And that was the plan. And then I had a couple people that I was working with and had planned on working with, starting in January, February, that kind of pushed back and backed out a little bit. And it's like, okay, so that is not going to happen right now.
Gotcha.
But I've got enough work. I did one of these interviews in October. I was just got done doing quarterly taxes, and at that point, I was at 27,000 on the year for just the drone side of it, and I finished up just a tick over 30 because it was kind of slow 3 months around October, November, and December. The money's out there. You got to chase it. It's not it's your 107, and now you've got a license to print money. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
That's the lie that we were all sold. That's the lie that we were all sold at the beginning. And, I'm not knocking anybody at any point, but we believe that lie. And there's a lot of us out there that have 107s that aren't really ever going to do anything with them. But there's a few of us out there that have managed to figure out a way to make money doing it. Eventually, some of us will get to the point where that's all we do. I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at right now. That when I step away from the current job, then I will be fine with no issues. I'll be very happy at what I do. And basically, what I'm doing right now is construction progression monitoring at the heart of it. I mean, I fly construction sites. I go at the initial flight we do before anybody gets on site to set up a baseline so that, going forward, and I'll use an example. We had a job up in Severance where, we had, as a company, FP had come in and we were doing the work, and then the city of Severance came back at us because there was some road damage, and it was going to be an $80,000 change order for FP to fix the road. But we were able to show that no, there was existing damage there before we even got on site, which, was a big savings for them,
Oh,
FP. So what we ended up doing is that yes, the road damage was there. Yes, we made it worse than what it was when we got there. However, we just split the difference with them. So instead of FP spending $80,000, we spent $40,000 on it. So everybody kind of walked away with a smile on their face. And at the end of the day, I was the hero because I saved a
mm,
big chunk of money. It's just little things like that that, add up over the life cycle of a job. I just submitted a proposal for a $58 million job, 16-month in length. And, we're gonna track the progress from the beginning all the way to the end when we turn it over to the client. And then once we get off the stormwater permit and everything's green and grassy, which, well, it's kind of hard to do out here in Colorado, but that makes life interesting is getting off those permits. But once that's all done, that'll be my last flight. So we look at it from you're able to see. In fact, I just put a video up, Severance, Colorado, in 85 seconds. And it was the library build that we did up there. And it was, 14 months of yield progress in 85 seconds. It allows us to take a snapshot. So my typical flights are every 2 weeks until we're dried in. So we're going to get that initial flight out of the way. We're going to establish a base map, and then everything's going to get built off of that. And I'm going to come back every 2 weeks after that until the building is dried in being a construction term, meaning that the roof's on, the sides are up, windows are in, but the interior is not completed. There's still a lot of work to do on the inside. Most of the work now is occurring inside, so there's not as much stuff happening on the outside. So my flight schedule is cut back to once a month at that point, at which point, it'll be once a month until the job's finished out, closed out. So this one that's coming up is supposed to start in March, and it's going to run until August of 26. So, it's a nice recurring revenue stream that I'm going to have monthly. And it only takes, in my position, it only takes 4 or 5 of those jobs to keep me fat and happy, and more importantly, keep the wife happy. This is the first idea that I've had that she's actually gotten behind me 100%. Or, we've all had those crazy ideas that I can make money doing this or make money doing that, but actually been able to show her.
yeah. So you wake up for first off, your schedule, it's crazy. Here it is. So
Yeah.
what do you do? What's your full-time job for FP?
So logistics, basically, I move pieces and parts from job site to job site. But we built buildings, we built churches, we built schools, medical care centers, libraries. Libraries are a big thing for us right now. I'll mobilize the job site, get all the equipment out to the job site, all the tech side of it, set up the trailers, the job trailers, and basically,
Okay.
I'm moving pieces and parts from job site to job site, whether it be
Yeah.
materials or equipment. Yeah,
Well,
that's
that's
the
nice
day
because it
job.
at least gets you familiar. I mean, I see a lot of people that try like, oh, I
Yeah.
want to do drones, and then they try to pick some area or industry or niche they know nothing about, and they think that learning the drone is the most important part. But if they don't know
No,
the industry at all, it's hard for them to really relate to that kind of customer. So it's nice that you stuck to
yeah.
the same industry you already know well.
Yeah, it was an easy fit for me. I tell people I had a cheat card for this. My cheat card was that I worked for my client. My client works for me.
You work as
It
in like
took
you have a full time job for your client. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my primary drone client is my employer, and that didn't come easy. There was a lot of tilting of windmills to get to that point. So back when this all started, I mentioned our safety guy on the P4P. He tried to fly it inside of one of our buildings one day, steel studs, and promptly crashed it because GPS interference and all the steel in the building. But anyway, we decided I went down that rabbit hole to see what use cases. Well, didn't really have a hero in the company at the time. And I'm talking to anybody and everybody that, about drones. And I mean, I know that I got to the point where I was being annoying with it, but I believe that we could make a change for the better. I'm not going to say better, faster, cheaper, but we could be more efficient in some of our processes with the drone. It was a hard fought battle to get here. I flown a couple jobs for FP, small mapping jobs for our CTO. And we had talked at length multiple times about this. And then he had got me in front of, we set up a meeting with ownership. And I got in front of ownership and, they just didn't see the value of it. It didn't work for them in their heads. And it's like, no, y'all are wrong. And I didn't tell them that because I enjoy having a job. It got to the point where I finally went to Josh, our CTO, and I said, look, are we going to do this or not? And I don't know what to tell you, Mike. Figure it out. I was like, okay, so one of two things are going to happen. Either FP is going to do this because all I initially wanted to do, David, was stand up an internal drone program. That's what I wanted out of this. That was the easy thing for me because, I'm the guy that has the truck that hits all the job sites. So that makes sense for me to throw a drone in my truck. And then as I get to a job site, I can fly it and do all that stuff. And it made a lot of sense in my head, but I couldn't sell it that way. And then finally, Josh and I had the conversation. So look, we can either do this as a company. And this was, I can tell you when this all happened. And it was right after COVID hit. And my 401k had tanked really bad. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a loan. We can either do this as a company or I'm going to take the loan. I'm going to buy the equipment and y'all are just going to hire me to do the job. And Josh said, you do what you got to do. I said, okay. Well, $7,000 later, I've got a drone, I've got a GNSS receiver, I've got all the stuff that I need to do the job. And I just started doing the job. And that first year, they spent more on me as a third party contractor than they would have standing up the drone program internally. And I'm okay with that. I mean,
So hold on. So they were like, they weren't necessarily totally against it in concept. If they hired you, they just didn't want to stand that up internally or what?
right. That they didn't see the value. So along the way, I had made some allies within the
Okay.
company that I could count on. It's like, hey, do you need me to come out? Yeah, come out and fly. Just give me an invoice. And then I started submitting
Oh, so
invoices.
like people who were in charge of like their own budgets kind of thing.
Yes,
I
dealing
got
with
you.
the
I got
project managers and the
Yeah.
superintendents. But as a company as a whole, there was a no-go.
Gotcha.
But like
Okay.
I said, that first year, it cost them more money they spent more money with me than they would have had they bought the drones and just stood up the program internally. Okay, because now I've got both hands in their pockets and they're okay with that, and I'm okay with that. So
Great. So do you work 12 hours a day on your day job?
no, let's talk about that real quick. I live from where I'm sitting right now, it's 64 miles one way.
Oh, so that's like commuting and all that stuff too.
Yeah, that's my commute time. I leave at 5 a.m. I leave the house at 5. I get to my job. I get here at the warehouse around 6:30, and then I leave here at 3:30, but it takes an hour and a half to get home. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
that's where the
Okay.
12 hours, the 5 to 5 come in. So
Gotcha. So a lot of your time, like the big chunk of your day is dedicated to day job and
it's
whatever time outside of that, you've been able to squeak in your own drone stuff. You've done, what'd you say, like 30-ish this year or something like that?
yep, yep. And that's mainly done on Saturdays and Sundays. I mean, I hate
Okay, that's
working on Sundays. However, if I need to fly a job because I'm double booked over a weekend, I will do that.
so just from weekend work, you've like pulled in like
Pretty
30 a
much,
week.
yeah.
Or if I were in your shoes and you're like, hey, I'm gonna quit my job. If I'm doing 30 weekend warrioring it, if you want to say that, like what could you expect to do if you're able to give it, all of your attention? I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell.
Well, I'm looking at so in order for me to do a full income replacement, because I've got a pretty sweet comp package here. I've got
Yeah,
a company truck and a company gas card, and
pretty
that's why
good.
I drive to and from work every day. So
Yeah.
the company's paying for my gas to get here. They also I don't charge them mileage when I'm working for them as far as doing a job on a Saturday. I don't charge them mileage and I charge them time on site, but I don't charge them any travel time because they're being gracious enough to allow me to use their truck to do
Hmm.
my job on their
Sure.
sites. So,
Sure. Okay.
have I used their truck on other sites and may or may not have charged travel time? That could have happened. But yeah, so
Cool. All right. So that's where you're at now, which is great, cool, and you work super hard to get there, obviously. And I think what you said is spot on. Like we always try to say on the podcast, but it's like you're not gonna go get a Part 107 license, and then turn around and start printing money. Because the Part 107 license is not what makes you special. Makes you special
No.
is knowing how to get customers, knowing how to do unique things within an industry with whatever tool it is, the drone, and solving problems.
And the other thing, part of it, David, is that you gotta be willing to show up. You've gotta show up. You can't treat this you can't treat this as a hobby. I mean, because if you do, it's never gonna amount to anything. I don't know about the real estate side. I don't know about any I can only speak to what I know, and what I know is construction. You've gotta show up and put the work in. I mean, that's it. And when I'm sitting there doing an interior job that's 84,000 square feet, and I'm putting all these little circles on the floor, and I'm spending 17, 18, 20 hours doing it. It gets very monotonous and very old. I get paid very
Mm.
well for that, but it wears. You got to be able to show up every day.
No, it's great advice. And just, for anybody, you got to decide if you're going to do entrepreneurship. I'll say this. I mean, I've been a business owner for 8 years. Before this, I did the same thing. I had a full-time job as an accountant, and I was doing accounting consulting jobs on the side. And then I started doing other stuff. And then eventually it was the drone stuff. And then this kind of took off, right? But nothing is ever like, oh, wow, this is super easy. And every person I know who owns a business, there's going to be times where they're going, "Oh, man, I'm crushing it." But most people, it's like, it's volatile, it's very difficult, they work a lot, so anybody who tries to sell you something that's like, "Oh, this is a piece of cake," it's just never the case, so
It's not the case. What's the phrase? Man, he made it overnight. No, but he didn't make it overnight. You didn't see the 6 or 7 years that he spent
yeah,
grinding
yeah,
away at the back, just getting crafting this trade to get where he got. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it's
the
just
10-year overnight success, yeah,
yeah, exactly,
yep.
exactly. Yes,
I like to balance people like, "Hey, sure, there's definitely opportunity there. I don't ever wanna, like, dissuade people from pursuing things they're passionate about or opportunity, but you just gotta weigh the cost because it's not gonna be simple."
it's not. The old saying is, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and nothing
Mhm.
worth doing is easy. You've got to have skin in the game. You got to know that this is what you want to do. You can't just wake up one morning and decide, okay, I'm going to fly a drone.
Yeah.
I mean, you could.
You can do
Are
that,
you
but then
gonna
you just gotta stick with that for a long period of time and decide to not
right?
give up till you figured it out?
Yeah. The money that I've made in the last 2 years, how much of it has actually gone into my pockets and not went back into the business? Very little. I don't need that money. I mean, I can just plow it right back into the business, which is nice because, I get new toys. It's not easy.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
anybody that tells you that it is trying to sell you something.
Or, just mislead you. The nice parts about at least full-time entrepreneurship is the trade-off is difficult and can be volatile. But then, I remember I used to work for the government, right? And one thing that I did not like about that was I got the paid same no matter what. If I crushed it, if I sucked, no matter what, I got paid the same, basically just on the time you were there. And while that's nice from a security standpoint, it's a little bit demoralizing from, wanting to work and put in the effort. And I remember when I started getting like side consulting jobs or whatever, I was like, oh, if I try harder, I get paid more. This is a really novel concept.
Exactly.
So the nice part about entrepreneurship or having your own business or whatever is that there's no ceiling, right? Like you can explore ideas, you can go do stuff, but it's overall harder for sure.
Because it's like I'm looking forward to what's down the road for me. I'll be leaving Colorado around August. Well, that's right in the middle of a 16-month project. Yeah, but I have a backup here. I've got a guy, Al,
Uh,
that's going to step in and take care of all my Colorado clients. And, we worked out a deal where I'm still going to handle all the back end of it, the billing and whatnot. So I'll get the checks and then I'll cut him a check and I'll keep a little off the top. And, wet dog drones will continue in Colorado and wet dog reality capture will start in Pennsylvania.
yeah. So
Yeah,
ways to grow.
it's a plan.
Let's rewind briefly. So the beginning is when you first started getting into it and getting paid for it. Did you get other clients outside of that as well, or did you just kind of stay focused with your main customer?
So I've had a couple side gigs that I've run, quote unquote, Colorado. We get interesting weather out here. And, one of the things that I did in the beginning was I would do a roof inspection. Basically, I would do a small ortho of your roof and turn that over to you at a cost of $100. And then, if you want me to come back next year, we could do it all again and I'll do it for 75. So, I mean, there was a few of those that, I've got customers that, still over him, I'll apply their roof. I've got a customer that every once in a while I'll go out and turn his buffalo for him. And I like that customer because he pays cash.
Do
So
you
yeah,
for that, do you do a map and count later, or do you like fly with a video camera and just look?
I do a map. I'll find the herd, and I'll fly a quick map, probably 300 feet. There's usually enough space in there where I can get a really good number on them. So
Let's say somebody's out here. Well, first off, I definitely agree with the advice of like try to pick a lane and stay in
yeah,
there. Some people they're like, "Oh, I want to do mapping and real estate and then you're never going to be great at any like all those. Just
no,
pick one. Um, but let's say someone's picked mapping because that's what you do, and they're like, "Hey, I know how to make a basic ortho, but I really want to make more money or I want to get deeper into this." Walk through how you would what advice you give them.
okay, one of the terms I'm seeing in construction is that we are not worried about accuracy right now. Very disturbing for me, but that's okay. The money's out there, um, but you gotta chase it. You gotta find it. You gotta work with the clients. You gotta find the clients. So if I was doing this all over again, which I currently am, sort of, LinkedIn is where I would be. I'd be talking to the smaller construction companies, the ones in the $200 million range, 100 million to $300 million range, in that range, because they're not big enough. I don't think they're probably big enough to where they could have a drone program, but they probably don't.
Uh-huh.
The next criteria that I'm going to look at is do they have a VDC department, virtual design and construction? If they don't have a VDC department, I'm not going to tell you don't waste your time, but it's going to be a hard road to get in with them if they don't already have somebody that is doing the BIM modeling, is doing the interference modeling, all that stuff that happens before building even comes out, before even the first shovel of dirt comes out of the ground. That's where you want to be looking at as far as who you want to be working for. They're going to be more receptive to what we're trying to do. So you're going to make your maps. You're going to talk to your PMs, your project managers. You're going to talk to your superintendents on the job sites. You're going to show up. You're going to have all your PPE. You show up with shorts and flip flops, they're just going to walk you off the site and tell you not to come back. But the PE and the superintendent who you want to talk to, it's going to be a tough sell, especially with the older generation. Not picking on anybody because they paved the way for where we are now. But what I have noticed is that I have more inroads with the younger superintendents, the Gen Xers and younger, because they're going to be more receptive to what we do because they came up with technology more or less, especially the younger guys. You get into the Gen Zs that are all over it. They can't wait to get started until they get their patty smacked by ownership because they're spending too much money. But that's a whole nother story. Build a book of business. I mean, you've got to get out. You're going to do some free work. I mean, that's all there is to it. Go out. There's construction sites in everybody's neighborhood. You can legally fly them without permission. Don't fly them when they're active because then you're flying over people, and that's a whole nother can of worms. I do have a waiver though. I got my waiver for flight over people with my Avaya. So yeah, good for me.
Nice.
Yeah. So make your maps, get them in front of the people that need to see. But the biggest thing that you need to do is you need to talk to them and find out what their pain points are, because the drone is just another tool in the toolbox. It's like a hammer. It can do a couple different things, but it might not always be the right tool for the job. So establish a need, find out what the problem is, and then once you've figured that out, then you can craft your pitch around that, show them the value that you could bring to the table. Because not everybody needs a drone on their job site. I flew a job up in Severance here. It was the size of a postage stamp. It was less than an acre. It's like, okay, I put it up. I took 10 pictures. There's my map. Really? Yeah, it was just this tiny little thing.
What they want it
Um,
for.
yeah, he just wanted it for a reference. That's all it was. And I flew it
Okay.
once, and that was enough because that's all they wanted. They wanted it for contours mainly because the way that the site drained was going to drain onto a landowner's property that wasn't really big on the whole idea of putting the building there. The contours form, and from that, they figured out a swamp, a stormwater management plan to where all this stuff, it worked out in the end. The big thing you can do is find their pain points, and the only way to do that is to get in front of them and talk to them. And that's the hardest thing to do, is being able to get in front of these people. If you know somebody that's in the construction industry, talk to them and maybe they can get you an in. I won't say stay away from residential construction because the money's not there, but it is there, but not to the point that
Yeah.
commercial is. It's smaller job sites. And I mean, unless they're putting in 100 houses, but then again, they've already priced these houses out to the penny and there's no money in the job for drone services. Custom home builders are a better way to go than these big companies that you see building cute neighborhoods. But yeah, you're going to make some free stuff. You're going to get that in front of your people and show them how that they can build off of, not build off the information, but take your information
Yeah.
and do their job better. Whether it's better, faster, or cheaper, you can have two, but you can't have all three. It's not an easy road, man. It really isn't. And I don't know. It took me 3 years of beating on this drum to where I got a consistent client. And hell, I work for the people. And I mean, obviously, I'm my own biggest advocate, but I suck at self promotion. So for me, what happened was that one superintendent talked to another superintendent. Now I've got multiple superintendents that I'm working with, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Have you ever talked to like civil engineering firms? I just know a couple other guys that I know in the mapping space. They're doing higher level stuff like you're doing. They'll work directly with surveyors or civil engineering firms to do some of this stuff. You ever get those calls
So
or pursue that?
I don't get those calls. We do have one of our superintendents is coming from a civil engineering background, doing the heavy construction, heavy civil construction. And we're getting ready to do a road project. And I think I mentioned that early on. It's in a zero grid and it's going to be a 4-month project. And he wants flights every 2 weeks out there. And I said, yeah, this is going to be all contingent on the FAA saying it's okay for me to fly. Otherwise, you're going to pay me for the time that it took to fill out the authorization, but that may be all you're paying me for.
Yeah.
Because if they say, no, I can't, it's done deal. And it's not like he gave me a lot of notice because they want to kick this off into March and it's the middle of June, January now. We've talked about it for the last almost month, but I finally got an RFI from him today, a request for information. Yeah, he finally put it in writing. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with that. Hopefully I can get it time. I mean, last time I had to get a zero grid, it took 45 days. So we should be all right. I haven't had to deal with this airport before, so we'll see what happens with that.
Man, you're a busy guy. Well, hey, I think that's great advice though. It's like got a good criteria of which kind of companies to look at, what kind of, they need these departments. Here's who you talk to, get in front of them, do free work, try to get some volume in there and, see what happens. You
Yeah,
never know
it's
when something like that is going to happen. So just
yeah,
consistently reaching out to people and being in touch with
yeah,
them. And you never know what
it's like
happens.
that $58 million job that FP is getting ready to start. That came because I had done interior work for the guy at a different job, and it ended up saving. That was a $400,000 change order because we were able to get in there before the job started, shoot the interior, and then halfway through the jobs, the client came back and says, "Hey, we need you to purchase all this stuff that you took out." I was like, "What stuff?" Somebody had gotten in and stolen all the copper, all the radiators, all the
Oh,
yeah.
what?
So yeah, it totaled $400,000, and we were able to show that the interior work that we did is like, yeah. Do you look at the metadata here that this was done before anybody got here, and none of that stuff is in the building. So yeah, they ended up eating that change order, which made me look good. Yeah,
Do you have insurance for that kind of stuff, like theft?
I would assume so. At the end of the day, we didn't have to pay for it, so that's all that
Yeah,
mattered.
yeah. Examples, like, keep storing up examples like that. Is like, "Hey, here's
Yeah.
all the times that I've saved people tons of money."
Yeah, yeah, and so
That's awesome. Well, hey, if someone wants to
no,
reach out or find out more about you, what's the best way to, like, either check your stuff out or get a hold of you or
yeah, just my email, Michael@wetdogdrones.com, and then I am pretty good about getting back to people in a timely fashion. Usually be 1:30 in the morning when I
I
do,
decided to
but
say 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
actually, I do that just to screw with people now. I will wait until 1:15, 2:00, 1:45 in the morning to answer their email. Look, yeah, see, I am up. Really,
Yeah.
this is the schedule. This is me.
It's been great having you on here. I appreciate all your advice, and
Hey,
everybody that was
no
listening
worries.
is, always loves getting other people's stories and hearing. I think the best way to learn is just, hey, what's worked for other people, and it usually generates some good ideas and hopefully gives some inspirations. But Mike, appreciate your time.
No worries, David. I'm always glad to help. You know that we've been doing this for a couple of years now. I've done a couple of your
Hey,
junk questions answered. So here
you're
we
the
are again.
best.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, you're
So
like one of the most helpful people that I've ever experienced. You're always willing to dive in and willing to help out, and you're great.
because it comes back to me. It always comes back to me. And I put out good vibes. Good vibes come back. That's why I'm always
Yeah.
willing to help.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
But no
All right.
worries.
Take care.
So